Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with DrCybersecurity. And this evening, I have one amazing guest for you. Gene Taylor has known me for about 30 years, maybe more, but he's been one of my mentors and leaders, and I truly learned leadership from him because I met him very early in my career. So, Gene Taylor, please come in and introduce yourself and say hello to our audience.
Hello, everybody. My name's Gene Taylor, and I have known Mansur for quite a long time. Give you a little bit of my background real quickly. I started into systems work back in 1966 as a programmer, for Baltimore Gas and Electric, and worked my way up through the ranks, through systems analyst, doing various, business projects. Moved over into what you would call process special systems or real-time systems, and got out of the business side and took on a lot of various projects in both electric transmission and distribution areas, as well as electric trouble operations. Eventually, I wound up going to Calvert Cliffs Nuclear Power Plant, where Mansur and I worked closely together at the nuclear power plant, making sure that at that time, the nuclear power plant was on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission watch list. And we had to get off the watch list. So they had to do systems improvements and that sort of thing. So we had a really nice team there of people who were plant engineers and systems people. And we got off the watch list. I then was put in charge of the project known as the Business Information System Project, which ran for a number of years, where we replaced literally systems that were written back in the 60s when computers first came out, the IBM 1401s, 7074s, and IBM 360s. And they had to replace those systems. So I headed that project for a number of years, and then I moved on to, at the request of the Chief Executive Officer, to be the Vice President of Systems for our new power trading operation, which was called Constellation Power Source. And I was there for 5 years before I retired, actually. And I retired after 33 years of systems work. Okay, and most of it, I guess, was doing project management for probably the last 20 years of the 33 years I was there. Was pretty much doing project management work, overseeing groups of people that did project management, that sort of thing. Okay?
Well, that is an amazing introduction, because you were literally living and breathing the company. I mean, what I learned about leadership, this is what I would hope that you would share with our listeners. Your thoughts about leaderships, the leaderships that you met and all that, and then how you, I guess, built your teams and things like that. We would love to know more about that.
All right, well, let me just go into a few things. I'll tell you, you've heard the term leaders are made, not born, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I think that's fairly true and fairly accurate. I think you're probably, when I was a kid, I never was a leader. I was always a follower, and while I had a lot of confidence in myself, I usually left the leadership to other people. Mm-hmm. And along the way, I kind of learned leadership skills by watching other people, obviously through education, okay, through a lot of self-development, because when I started in IT, it was, I was still in college. I mean, I was full-time college. I left college, went to work at BG&E, okay, after a stint at Western Electric Corporation, believe it or not.
Mm.
And then went to night school and got my, Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Loyola University, Loyola College at the time.
Right.
Okay. And then went on and got my master's degree in finance there.
Mm.
But the main thing of how I think you develop leadership skills is getting mentored by somebody. And I got mentored by 2 or 3 really good people as I was going through my career. Okay. People who led by example. Okay. And on occasion, when I needed to be told something,
Right.
that I was not doing right or I should do something a different way, they sat me down and they told me,
Right.
here's what you should be doing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Simple little thing. This is a funny story. I know you like funny stories.
Yeah.
Okay. One of my bosses, I was involved with this project, and he said to me, we need to go to the executive boardroom and make a presentation to the board. And I said, okay. And this is when I was fairly young still at the company.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, I was wearing cowboy boots all the time to school. You probably don't picture me in cowboy boots, but I was wearing cowboy
No,
boots.
I mean, I picture
And
you with
I was
anything.
sitting in his office with my leg crossed, and he said to me, by the way, don't wear those cowboy boots. And I said, why? He said, because they won't take you seriously. Now, that's a true story, okay? And I've never forgotten that. So I didn't. I wound up putting regular business type shoes on, I had my suit and tie, the whole deal. We went and did the presentation, and, everything went off well. But I didn't wear those cowboy boots anymore. Okay. Well, here's another thing, okay? Leadership, in my opinion, leaders are people that kind of know when to do the right thing at the right time. Mm-hmm. Not everybody realizes when the right time is to do something.
Right.
And the reality of it is you have to make sure that you know what's going on around you. You got to understand what management is looking for, primarily what your customer is looking for, because that's your number one thing, is to make sure the customer gets what they want, okay? Right. Not what you think they want,
right? What
they want, okay? Absolutely. And then you need to make sure that all of your members of the team understand your goals, the objectives primarily of the customer, because the reality of it is the leader doesn't really have too many goals other than to satisfy the customer, satisfy management, and make sure the people that he works with or she works with, are on the same page and going to do, what they need to do. Mm-hmm. Kind of putting it in perspective a little bit, if you took 1,000 people, 990 out of 1,000 would not be good leaders, in my opinion, because they don't know certain things. And let me give you some characteristics what I think good leaders have. Okay. I think they're hard driving, number one. Okay. I was always hard driving.
Yes, I remember that about you.
Okay.
And I really loved that passion. Your passion always showed.
Yeah, and that means like being willing to work after hours, long after hours, okay, whether you got paid or not,
Yes.
Knowing that if you did that, that would be recognized, and rewards would come. Yes. Leaders are got to be willing to make mistakes, okay? I was always willing to make mistakes because one of our chief executive officers one time told me that there isn't really a mistake if you can correct it.
Yeah.
It's okay to fail because you learn from failure, and as long as the failure you had you can correct, okay, you can keep going and move on. And I never forgot that because he just said, and he told me, he looks for people who are willing to take chances, are willing to take risk, and willing to fail. You know, because he knew you can't grow unless you fail. You know, and I failed quite a few times. You know, going through my career. You know, as everybody does.
Right.
There's one other aspect of leadership, which is, in my mind, one of the most important, and that is, how do you pick your team? How do you pick the team that you're going to work with?
Yeah.
Okay. My thought process was always this. I always look for self-starters.
Okay.
Number one. By the way, you were a self-starter. I recognize that from the day I met you. You were a self-starter. Okay. So you qualified on that basis. Number two, okay, you weren't afraid of hard work. Okay. I recognize that in you too. Okay. Third thing was the people that I picked were shouldn't be afraid to try new things.
Right.
And like you were talking about before we got started here, you always were willing to come and bring new ideas.
Right.
You know, and push your ideas.
Right.
You know,
right.
pardon me, and that was always great to me. And you were not afraid of failure. You know.
Yep.
And those four things, okay, really is what I look for in team members. And you know, we had great teams a couple of times when you and I worked very closely together.
Yes.
And that's because everybody on our teams had those four qualities, okay, had those four characteristics.
The time that you created that team at Constellation Power Source, that was almost like the dream team. You picked the people from all parts of the company and put them all in that one place where we were building these brand new companies, and I was like, wow, this is heaven for me.
Yeah, well, yeah, we had free reign to do what we wanted there, you know, and that was pretty good because our leader at the time, who had been the former finance officer for the company, you know, was put in charge of the new organization, and he basically said to me, you know what we have to do, just go do it. Okay. And then I turned around and put the team together, and I told you guys what we needed to do, and you did it. Okay. And I, as I would say, I didn't really come up with any big ideas. I mean, I'm smart, but I'm not any genius. So I left it to you guys.
You were the leader. You were the orchestrator. See, that's the thing that I've always loved about you, that you were that orchestra of the symphony. You were hiring the specialists that you needed. You needed the bass player or rhythm player or whatever player you needed.
Right.
You put them together and then let them do their thing, and then basically said, okay, we all got to be in tune, right? We all got to play in the same scale, right?
Yes. I didn't hear some of that because you went blank on me, but anyway.
Oh.
So what else I want to say about this? Well, one thing a leader has to be willing to do, when you succeed, okay, number one rule is you don't use the pronoun I, you know?
Yes.
You always say, we did it, or our team did it, or the team did it, you know? You got to push the credit to the people that did the work.
Yes.
Okay. However, if you fail, you have to take the burden of failure.
Oh, yes.
And you don't push that away.
Right.
Okay. You just got to take it. So those are two key things about being a leader that you know is important to me. And I don't know, maybe a lot of people don't think about things this way, but like in one aspect of like managing projects too, there's only three things that are important. What's the customer want? When does the customer want it? And what's it going to cost? And, you know, you typically, in computer world, projects have budgets, and you should try to meet your budget. You know, that's a primary responsibility of good leadership, is meeting the budget making sure the customer gets what they want, right, and they get it on time.
Right.
And while that happens, everybody stays good, happy, and is involved.
But there's a key aspect of you that I think that our listeners need to listen about, because one of the things is that this concept of ethical leadership, the people that mentored you, the examples that you set, and then the people that you mentored. One of the key things, because notice what you said, what the customer wants. So in other words, it was always about the customer and then relaying that goal to everybody else. To me, that was the ethical leadership, because you always are thinking about that. And I think that's what guided everything else, right? We were doing things that had never been done before, so we had to be willing to fail, right?
Correct.
We had to be willing to take risks,
right?
right? I mean, these are everything that we did throughout the time that you and I were working together. We were always doing innovative and new things that had never been done before.
Correct. Yeah, you hit on something important, because I was going to mention this too. Two really key factors in my mind. It doesn't even involve just leadership. It involves everything.
Yeah.
In my opinion, integrity is so important.
Yes.
And honesty is so important.
Right.
As long as a leader has integrity, okay, and goes about doing things the right way, not looking for outs or excuses or whatever, but has integrity, and they are honest with everyone. You have to be honest with everyone.
Right.
And those are pretty much my thoughts about leadership. And I tried to live that way in my whole career. Early on, I was considered a maverick, because a lot of people thought that when I was like a programmer and an analyst and so forth, that I always thought I knew the right way to do things, and that I wouldn't listen to anybody, and to be honest, one of my mentors actually sat me down and told me that, that people look at you as though you're a maverick, right? And you need to overcome that hurdle, So I paid more attention to that, after I was told that,
I wish you had told me that.
Oh yeah, well, yeah, you could have used some of that too, I guess.
I know. It was much later that I learned that, hey, all these innovative things that I'm trying all the time and doing all the time, some people actually don't like all that innovation.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Very true. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's pretty much like, how I kind of view leadership.
Great.
So I don't know if you got any questions or any way you want to push it, or
No, I think you have given us a terrific view of how to build teams, how to be a leader, how to look out for the customer, the key things. That it is true, leaders are made, and I do believe, I 100% agree with you on the mentorship aspects. I think that early in my life, when I was at the nuclear power plant and I observed the way you were leading and all that, that was impactful to me, because as you remember, my supervisor was in Baltimore, right? 78 miles away, right?
Right.
So who was my mentor at the nuclear power plant? Nobody. I had to latch on, find somebody, because I was new to the company fairly early in my career, right? Who was going to mentor me? So you had to be my example there. And that really helped. And yes, I was always true to myself, and I was going to do that, pushing the envelope. I did all of that. But I think we sort of needed that, because if you remember, even at the nuclear power plant, the model that we had developed had not been done anywhere else in the company. And later on, that became the model for the rest of the company.
Yes, that's true. That's correct.
Yeah. Yep. So it was absolutely wonderful catching up with you, Gene. We are going to network afterwards, but I'm going to bring in my next guest, Hector Sosa. So Hector, please introduce yourself and say hello to our listeners.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Mansur. Thank you so much for having me on your platform tonight. I'm very excited to be here. As Dr. Mansur said, my name is Hector Sosa, and I am an aspiring cybersecurity leader. That's what I like to believe of myself. I am also a retired military veteran with over 20 years of experience in cyber and IT, mostly all security. I'm also a graduate of Western Governors University, where I completed a master's degree in information assurance. And my current role, I function as an advisor for this is CSSP, which is a Cybersecurity Service Provider Program. I interface directly with the program director and advise on matters pertaining to security architecture of data center hosted physical and cloud environments. Lastly, I am the founder of Bulwark Securities, which is a small cyber consulting business. I have formed some partnerships in Virginia, Chicago, and more recently, Central America. I'm very excited to expand in that direction.
Well, wonderful. What a wonderful introduction, Hector. I also know that you are a friend of one of my friends, Dr. Dwayne Hodges. I think he introduced the two of us. So that's wonderful. So
Yeah,
what things do you want to talk about and what topics do you want to talk about today?
Well, it's very rare to have access to someone of your experience. So I have a ton of things to talk about, but I think I've narrowed it down to a couple.
All right.
It has to do mostly with a theme that's discussed a lot lately because of how it affects us, and that's the Internet of Things. From a security perspective, with the security mind that we've all been trained to have as security professionals, it's very difficult to sort of accept the fact that an application or a device's ease of use is always going to trump the security. So over time, I've learned to accept it because from a business perspective, it does make sense. I mean, you cannot spend a lot of time trying to patch up everything that needs to be done when you have deadlines to meet the Black Fridays and the Christmases and stuff like that. So, but still doesn't sit right with me. My question is, with the existence of so many frameworks that we have, the ISOs, the COBITs, NERCs, NIST, why then are we still struggling with the overall security of those devices? And they concern me the most because those are the things that are going to interface most directly with users, which are, some will say, the weakest link in security. So,
right. So you have pinpointed an issue in the Internet of Things, but
yes.
If you look wider, that same issue that you find in the Internet of Things, you find elsewhere also. So it's not necessarily, yeah, it may be in the Internet of Things, there are some inherent functionality that people have not built into those devices, so therefore maybe there are some limitations around that. But at the end of the day, one of the things about leadership is responsibility, accountability. You see, we have no leadership and accountability anywhere. That's part of the biggest reasons why we have cybersecurity, security-related problems in any company today. It's not just the IoT sector, okay? Because even in the IoT sector, if you have leadership and governance, you can still put tremendous amounts of protections and safety around there. We can never be 100% secure or safe. You know that, we all know that. But we also have to know that this is a journey, and that journey requires leadership, continuous innovation, continuous risk-taking, but then continuously assessing, do we have the right level of risk? Do we have the right players? Do we have the right team members? So you heard Gene even talk about the membership and all that. Well, part of the problem that these problems exist is because most companies are not willing to hire the right people to run the right environments. So the other day, actually, one of my guests said a very amazing thing. This is why I love talking with guests from other cultures. He basically said a very interesting thing. He said, when you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So sometimes that's what happens. I thought that was so hilarious and so appropriate, because what happens is today, you got all these people paying incredibly low amounts of compensation for people, and then they say, oh, there's a skills gap, I cannot find anybody. I'm like, have you tried hiring at the right salary level? Because I have never had problems hiring the right people, because it's a matter of compensation. If I want somebody good, I got to pay decent money.
That is a very interesting point. In fact, I think I'm going to add it to my resume. So I also, it's interesting that we're talking about leadership, because that also has to do with the next question that I had today. I was speaking with our mutual friend, Dr. Hodges, who has become to me a mentor in a very short time.
Oh, wonderful! You're lucky, man. You're lucky. He's an amazing guy.
So I was asking him about how I could improve my career, and asking sort of improve my way to my long-term goals, which is become a cybersecurity leader. Mm-hmm. He told me, why don't you try teaching? Mm-hmm. I've never thought about that, because frankly, I didn't think that I was qualified, but he sort of opened up my mind to something different when he told me that, you spent 20 years in the military, leadership and training of soldiers is your job, was your job as a non-commissioned officer. Mm-hmm. And that sort of blew my mind, because I had never thought of it that way. So my question to you is, first of all, how can an aspiring cybersecurity professional, how can they become or get into the education business first of all, and second, what are the qualities that you would like or that you prefer in a cybersecurity teacher? Okay,
so you had, I guess, two parts of the question. One is, how do you get into the education business? The other is, you were talking about being a leader in this space?
Yes.
Right. So let me address the leadership part first, because you heard from Gene's segment, actually, that leadership is nothing more than making sure that you understand the objective and you translate that objective to everybody else, and then everybody else is pulling towards that objective. So as long as you can do that, and again, also picking up the right people. So having that mindset, and of course you have to have that ethical mindset, integrity, truth. If you are in trouble, if you have a particular problem, if you never admit to the problem, you can never fix it, right?
That's correct.
It doesn't matter who is to blame for the problem. Forget about the blame. First, identify what is the problem. A true leader will never deflect from the problem. Whenever we were always dealing with nuclear power plants, very high sensitive, high risk environments. So bullshitting never worked, right? We had to speak the truth, and then we had to pinpoint exactly where the problem was, learn from it, fix it, and then make sure that that problem never repeats. And as a matter of fact, Gene was mentioning another thing, that a problem or a mistake isn't a mistake if you can recover from it. Yes, that was the other thing that as leaders we trained our people, that yes, we're going to do a lot of innovative things, but I always want you to have a backup or a way to get out of that, whatever it is that even simple thing like patching, right? We always used to make a backup before patching, right? Yeah. Otherwise, what if the patch went awry or the patch didn't work? This was common sense. So I would only fault a person who didn't do that precaution. So that is the first thing. Leadership is actually a learned art. If you have 20 years of that leadership experience, guess what? You can mentor the next generation. That's why I'm spending so much time in mentoring the next generation, and I share so much knowledge, and I bring in all the people because, okay, I have had a terrific career, okay, successful career, more than 30 years. It is time for me to build and mentor the others. So I donate a lot of my time. This is all free advice that I give people, right? So that is essential. So leaders who have been in the field need to be teaching also. That is the second thing. So that brings me to that aspect. Because in the universities today, we really need more practitioner scholars, people who have the practical experience, especially in our field, because our field is very much applied. It is there for the business purpose. Technology exists to solve a business issue. It is not a theoretical thing. Yes, theory and all that is required, but if you don't know the application, how to minimize the risks, all that business elements, and then how to make money, all that stuff, everything else is useless. So part of the problem with academia is that we have too many people teaching in our field with no practical experience at all. And some of them don't even have degrees in the field. So that's a serious problem. They're teaching from books, and yes, you can learn enough from books, but I can tell you nothing beats practical experiences. So yes, people like you need to go there. And I can tell you from my own experiences for the last 8 years or so that I've been in academia, and I've been building this next generation, and I can see the difference that people go through when they are being mentored and they're taught by us. It's a radical difference. Just to give you a simple example, back to back, 2019, 2020, my graduates and my mentees won back-to-back awards as the rising stars in cybersecurity from ISC Square. You probably know about ISC Square. How does that happen? I mean, think about the massive number of graduates and everybody that is going out in the world. Why are two of my graduates winning that back-to-back? Because they are different. The people that we are mentoring, they are also growing up to be very different. And my deal with them is that if I mentor you, I need you to mentor 10, 20 others throughout your lifetime. And guess what? That's what they were doing. And that's also why they got the awards. Because if somebody does something, book and all that, and they do something, they're never going to win an award. They're going to win awards by contributing to society.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. And I learned this as a trainer in the Army, that you, while you're training other people, you're also bettering yourself and your own skills.
Absolutely. Your skills will become refined.
Yes, that is one of the things that I'm after, to share what I know and to also elevate what
and your language starts to improve, because sometimes you may say things that are so complex because we may have so much experience and all that, right? We have to know when we're talking to an undergraduate student or a graduate student that we need to make it so that they will understand. We can be the best scholars in the world, but if our students don't understand us, it's completely useless, right?
Yes.
So you will improve your language, your delivery, all of that. So that is another skill that you will be learning. And then you'll also learn how to deal with a variety of people, because you're going to meet people from a variety of backgrounds, variety of ages, and all that. And that also will improve your own leadership skills.
So just to recap your comments, experience and leadership are the best things for a person in academia to have.
It's golden. Those are the only professors I used to hire. Very rarely would I hire somebody who has had no experience in the field.
That is very good to know, Dr. Mansur.
Yeah, I used to go out, see, from my network. I remember I hired a Navy captain, okay? He had never taught in his life, okay? But I knew he was a leader. Somebody who was a captain in the Navy knows leadership, okay? And he was already doing cybersecurity stuff over there. So I basically said, look, I know this is not the money issue, but I need people like you in the classroom inspiring my students, okay? And he did it, and he loved it, and the students loved him. So those are the kinds, Dr. Hodges, again, practitioner scholar, right?
Yes.
And he would drive from Delaware all the way 90 miles or so. Okay? Again, look at the dedication. He wasn't doing it for money, but the students ate it up. Students loved it.
Yes.
You see? So that is what we need to be doing.
Thank you very much.
Well, it has been amazing talking with you.